Mustache Tales.
Yeah!
From my observation standpoint, from photographing all over the world, connecting with so many people, the camera has just been the medium for me to be able to connect with whether it be a person or whether it be nature or an animal, or the spaciousness. I feel like we've exhausted all resources. We're at a time right now in existence where the only currency left is authenticity. And authenticity is the gold. Authenticity is what we're all hungry for. The beautiful thing is it's the easiest thing to do. The hardest thing is not everybody's going to like it. So, but if you're aligned with that authenticity, your frequency is going to match the frequency of the other authenticity. And we're all just going to allow ourselves to just be our radical, weird expression of, yourself. And so that's why I was attracted to connecting with you guys. I felt what you're doing right here is super authentic, super real. Very much that's what I'm attracted to. That's where I'm putting my energy. So I'm super happy to be connecting with you guys in this present moment.
Kene, it's awesome to see you again. And that's exactly why I wanted you to meet Jay, because just for the audience, we've had actors, writers, comedians, longevity scientists, football players, all sorts of people on. But you and your work and who you are is something that is totally unique to our conversational podcast here. And so people who don't know, we're talking to Kene Sperry. He is an artist and I would say photographer from not even Pacific Northwest. You're based in Montana. But the story of how we met is really two things coming together because it was a special time. It was an occasion, and it was the timing of the occasion. So this was about right at the end of the lockdown. It's kind of ironic that I met Kene as a friend when everyone started going outside again. And I had the opportunity in February of 21 to meet up with a bunch of my oldest friends in Montana. And we started doing some radical stuff. We were out in the mountains and we were hiking and skiing and having an incredible time. And Kene was part of that group. And he had a camera on him the whole time. I thought I didn't know his work when I first met him. But we had these couple days and nights out in Montana. And when I saw the images that Kene had captured, I was like, whoa, I was there. Like, it didn't look like they were so cool and like badass and transcendent and captured moments and people and nature in such a way that I was like, I was there, but I wished I was there.
Like, right.
It was just one of those things. And we've since kept in touch. And I thought that it would be, this is going to be the first time we've had a visual component to our show, Jay, but we're going to show some of Kene's work and talk to him about his process and like what inspires him and stuff. And I'm really excited to share him with.
So much gratitude to just be here in the presence. Hayes, I know what you're saying. What my gift is, and it's really like kind of in and out, but I see the uniqueness in every moment. And sometimes we get kind of caught up in the overstimulation of the day-to-day and the activities of the planning, the next thing we're going to do, here and there. But there's so much beauty happening in every single moment. And actually what's kind of unique is there's never been two photographs that have ever been duplicated, because every single fraction of a moment is unique in itself. And when you kind of think about that, it like really blows your mind. You're like, wow. So every single moment is a unique moment. And then so lately I've just kind of been slowing myself down to kind of turn my analytical mind off and move into my heart and my gut, and really just move into that childlike wonder and awe, right? This curiosity. And so this first piece, Yellowstone Stream 1, really inspired me because it's like the elementary kind of the simple line gestures, almost just kind of have this playful, almost uh, kind of surreal, almost a real kind of feminine, masculine kind of line gestures that merge together as one. So there's a lot going on here, and then there's very little. So it's kind of this like, how do I break down the simplicity of it? And I always ask myself the question, when you try to show everything, you show nothing. When you say everything and you let everything out, you kind of express nothing. How can we distill it down into a photograph and say everything with very little? So that's what this piece does to me.
So what elevation, we're looking at a stream, the Yellowstone stream, which is snaking around itself. And it almost looks like it has three heads. It looks like a Kate Haring painting, almost, the way that those shapes are. What elevation is this from? I mean, what's the scope from the left of the frame to the right of the frame in miles, roughly?
Oh, okay. Yeah, great perspective. So it's photographed above 2,000 feet, maybe 3,000 feet up on a helicopter. And it's in Yellowstone National Park, and the scope kind of the land that's probably roughly, if you stretched it out, about a mile.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this macro, micro. You don't actually know if it's a mile or if we're actually looking at a micro 1 inch or 1 mile. So
And
that's that's a
is it a
massive space.
stream or
That's a
is
massive
it
space.
like what makes it a stream and not a river?
It's a So it's a stream. So the streams are the tributary bodies of water that go into the river. So this stream merges up with other streams that eventually goes into the Yellowstone River, then goes into the into the Mississippi, and then to the ocean, and then back around, and the water rises back up and precipitates back down and connects back to the earth and back to our bodies, and then it just circulates all the way through. So this is what makes it a stream, is it's a smaller body of water that moves into a bigger body of water,
How wide is what we're looking at? How, like, could you walk across it? Is it
you could walk across it. It'd probably be about a mile across.
Oh, I mean, just across the water. Like, how wide is the water?
Oh, the width of the water. Sorry, the width of the water is probably, I would say, 50 feet.
Okay.
The width.
And
maybe a little bit bigger in some sections.
Like, what does the land around, like, what do you do to the photograph to make it sort of, I'm going to call it moonscape? Like, is that what it looks like? Is that a time, a day? Is it like, how does it look like that?
Great question, Jay. So in the terminology as an artist, everybody knows that Ansel Adams, so I use that person, but in the term is a straight black and white photographer, straight monochromatic photographer. That means not manipulating, not digitally enhancing anything, as is. So the light actually, when it's at its lowest, either sunrise or sunset at its lowest level, it has the highest tonal range of gradient of light. So then it brings out those little subtleties of those kind of white dots. Those are actually little concaves, little depths within the land that the light refracts off of it. So these light, light, as you guys know, is like so beautiful. I see Hayes, you out there kind of walking through the mountains and kind of capturing the light, kind of behind you or whatever, and it does something to you, right? So when the light is kind of going down off the horizon, or if you're ever up, you guys ever take sunrise walks or anything?
Yes.
Sure.
Jay, are you up in the early morning?
Is it's all heightened. It's almost like it's just if I take a picture of one of my kids, I take it at one time and it's a picture that just gets disposed. If I take it at another time, I'm like, oh, I
Mhm.
got to frame this thing.
Sure. Yeah. So the light, they say photography is painting with light. So the light is the paint. And yeah,
But
they're you know
you're up there in a chopper 2,000 feet that you've got to have a long exposure on
yeah.
the aperture to get that, right? I mean, like, is it a stabilizer in there? Or how do
Oh
you?
yeah, it's yeah, high shutter speed. Everything's moving super fast. You know, I kind of came to the shooting out of a helicopter more and more because I would find myself hiking the mountains, and the light would like refract off the would be like refracting off the other ridge, like a little silver like beautiful silver sliver that would just like skim across the ridge. And I was like, man, if I could just be there in like 10 seconds, I could go there. And I started thinking about like this mobile kind of tripod, like, and then I was like, well, if I was, and I remember one time I was like looking up at the bird and I saw the bird fly by and it was, and I was like, gosh, if I could just have that vantage point, and then bring in like telephoto lens to really hone in on what I'm trying to capture, then I can really share and tell something. So I started doing that more and more and more. And it's pretty extreme. The helicopter's moving quickly. You have turbulence, wind. Both doors are off. I mean, if you have the camera out of the helicopter and the lens hood pops off or something, so I have it like taped in, locked in there. But because if the lens hood pops off and hits the rotor, you've got some major issues. So there's the combination of like you're seeing the stillness of it, but
Right.
there's a lot of movement in between here. Like so I have to really act and move quickly and intuitively. So when I shoot, I kind of do like a deep meditation as I'm kind of flying into the zone that I'm going to. I close my eyes, I bring it back to my breath, and then I just like receive, and I act more as a conduit to what I'm doing because it's intense. I've had some pretty kind of some movements where we were up in Glacier and we were climbing this peak. I was like, we need to go higher, we need to go higher. So pilots like giving it all they can, and then all of a sudden we hit this like air pocket where we just like dropped, and my whole gut just dropped, and that was one of those moments where I was like, my kids flashed into my mind, and then I was like, okay, I need to like move on. This isn't happening. I actually did getting the photograph. If I don't know if it's in here, but I'll
When,
share that one. So
Go to
we,
the.
well, let me
Let's
ask
go
you
to
this:
the
when
next
you
one, Jay.
say
yeah,
become a
Yeah.
conduit, do
yeah.
you is this a religious thing in your mind, or more of a connection to the crew?
It's the same place your
You
improv
know what,
suggestions
Hayes?
come
That's
from,
where I'm
Jay.
getting at.
The
I will tell you
ether.
this. I will be woken up out of the night with jokes, ideas for movies, jokes, specific jokes that if I don't get up and write them down, they're gone. And sometimes
Yeah.
I'll read them and they turn out to be somewhat gibberish because it's 4 a.m. And I'm like putting words down that I'm trying not to turn my brain fully on, and I'm like, that's not practical in real entertainment. But sometimes they're real jokes, and you go, where does it come from? Like it's sort of when like you hear like some of these bands talk about their albums. They're like, we just wrote the songs down and play them. We don't actually come up with them. And I'm curious to know
Yeah.
if that's the vibe you're kind of talking about.
That is the vibe. It's that consciousness to that source energy. So some people call it source. That's kind of the more PC way to put it. Some people call it universe. Some people call it the higher stream of consciousness. And then the oldest and most true way is it's God. You're speaking through the existence or moving through God. And that's not through any type of like structure or paradigm or shame base. You have to do this or that. I kind of I see the mind as like a sponge. So and then consciousness moves through the mind as like if you clear your mind up and you have a clear mind and consciousness, which is the awareness, which is the conduit, will kind of move through you. So Jay's like, wow, where'd that come from? I don't think anybody owns any of it. I think we're just like gifted to, we see the word to stream into the consciousness that's available all the time. And you have to have kind of a stillness, a quietness to your mind. And as we're kind of being programmed to just be stimulated all the time, over and over. I think it's imperative to designate some time to be in that boredom, be in that stillness, because where does creativity live?
Yeah,
It lives in
Willie
boredom,
Nelson
and
says
it
that
lives in
he
stillness.
wrote his best songs while driving his pickup truck down the road because his mind was
Yeah.
free and just things
Yeah,
came to him.
that sponge wasn't that sponge wasn't all saturated with all the stimulation and the programming and all the different what do I have to do? What about yesterday? What about tomorrow?
It's
So how do we wring that thing out and
It's
open
funny you
that
call
thing
it a
up
sponge.
to,
I mean, I wrote a novel on a brain surgeon, and the brain is, I think it's like 3.5 pounds, and it's the consistency is apparently that of like cottage cheese. It's like, it's this incredibly like malleable thing that is creating all this heat and energy. Um, in particular, when you go to sleep, like the organs all shut down when you go to sleep into sort of this kind of sleep version of stasis sort of thing. But the brain heats up at night. While you're dreaming, the brain is generating heat and energy out of this little cottage cheese, 3.5 pounds of cottage cheese. It's just very like, wow. And by the way, if it is God, he's a great dick joke writer, because I mean,
well, do you see the dick in the screen?
I do,
I
I do, I do.
mean, now you see that. Now you see the head.
I do.
Nature's telling you.
Now I can't. I can only see that now, Jay.
Now you
I
can't.
can.
Yeah.
Do you know the story? There's a story about a comedy writing room back in the days of early sitcoms, and there was this veteran comedy writer there, and they're all sitting there and they're writing these jokes for like "I Love Lucy" or "The Honeymooners" or something. And a young kid comes in, and he comes in with a notepad of all the stuff that he's written down, all the things he's pre-planned to say in the room, and he says them, and none of them land. And the old veteran comedy writer is sitting there at the edge of the table, and he's just firing joke after joke after joke that's on story, and it's just popping. And the young comedy writer after the meeting goes, "Hal, that was amazing, man. How did you do that? How do you write those jokes?" And he goes, "They come to me, kid." He just walked out of the room.
Exactly.
Where do you get those jokes? They come to me, kid.
That's beautiful, and it is going kind of circling back to that authenticity. Your expression, Jay, your expression, Hayes, it is authentic, and to move into that is like, hey, I'm gonna just say it, and I'm not gonna think how it's gonna land or what somebody's gonna think about it. I'm just gonna express this as is, and that's what we're hungry for. We're just yearning for this authenticity and ultimately like connection, right? So it's like, hey, I'm not here to be divided, and we may think alike, and of course we're different, but we all want to just like, I don't know, how do we take this thing so seriously? This life, we're trying to figure it all out, and I need to know your resource. What's your sources? Give me your sources. Well, my source is my heart. My heart is my expression.
The thing that drives me crazy is when there's certain groups where people sit down and like they have their 2-minute pitch or like 30-second pitch of who they are. It happens a lot in business interactions. Like people sit down, they go, the question is, it drives me nuts. What's your deal? And then the guy or girl will say, well, I started here, I did this, then I went over there, then we got acquired here, and I did this, and I did that. Like they have the whole map laid out. And some of my closest friends, like let's just say Keen, when we met, had no idea what your deal was. It just kind of, I was like at the end of the trip, I I discovered all this work. It wasn't anything that I intentionally thought out, like when you first start hanging out. So now we're looking at a picture of, and it's I would to describe it is to diminish it a little, but it's a silhouetted buffalo with steam coming off, and the way it's shot. This is all natural light here, Keen.
All natural light. Yeah.
So is it a
Where's that
moon?
light source?
It's actually the environment is it frosted the night before. This is in Yellowstone, and this is the first few seconds of the light coming up over the ridge, and the water precipitation is from the sun hitting the bison and the earth and warming it and actually creating the water starts moving upwards. So it kind of has, I don't know, to me it has this expression of like power, courage, stillness, stable, security, like like almost just like an anchoring in, and the light, that's in photography term, that's called rim lighting.
Now,
So when you're
right.
backlit.
Those are the ideal ways to photograph. I mean, it's sort of historically how Hollywood has photographed women. If you have a choice between putting the guy or the woman in backlight, you always put the woman in backlight to make her look better. That's a little bit of sexist, but that's how you're taught to do it. Like we don't give a shit what Hayes looks like. We'll put Allie in backlight. You know.
This actually looks like an image from the 20s. I mean, this
Yeah.
does evoke
All right.
that early cinema.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, you have to sort of. You're out there alone, uh, and
Yes.
there
Yes.
must be other bison around, right? And so
Yes.
you I
Yes.
mean, you want to take us through how you managed to be here at the right time? I know, I saw an interview with you online that said if you and you mentioned this earlier, where you said if you show everything, you're showing nothing. So, and you in that interview, you said get close to the thing you're trying to shoot and photograph only that thing, ideally, so that you're saying something. So you chose this bison, right?
Yeah.
And are they asleep? They must be, right?
Well, actually, what's really fascinating about bison is they, like, if you sit with them long enough, you actually become part of their herd. You're actually kind of like, because at first if you come up, and you've probably seen videos where people are in the park and they're like, they got their phones out and they're trying to move into the buffalo, and then the buffalo will like charge them or something. But if you actually kind of move in, like I remember there was not this particular photograph, but I moved in with my cross country skis with this herd of buffalo, and it was in the winter time, and it was like negative 15 or negative 20 degrees. So like everything's just kind of like really, really beautiful. You can see the ice crystals in the air. And the way I'm like watching these buffalo, like I'm like sitting there, I'm like, are they moving? Are they moving? They're not moving. And I just sit there. They're not wasting any energy. They're almost like, I'm like actually watching a visual meditation, the way that they kind of just like move really, really slowly. But the ironic thing is, if they want to move, they're quick. They can move fast. So they're beautiful animals. I think they're just they're really fascinating. They're kind of like, I mean, yeah, the way they move and they move in stillness is just kind of a wonder. So I mean, I'll sit with buffalo for hours and hours and hours, and actually start to break the linear time. I don't even know what time it is, and sometimes I come out of shoots from like a week long shoot, and I come back to like my family and kids and scheduling, and I'm like, it's like I have to go kind of back into like the world of kind of that linear clock. And it's pretty abstract to me when I move into my artistry. There is no time. Time is an illusion, really. It's like we created it.
That's yeah, Kurt Vonnegut. Time is a flat circle. Was that Slaughterhouse? I feel like you entered into a hive mind of the bison, and this is such a different image than someone driving through a wildlife park who hops out of their car and gets charged. I don't feel threatened by this
Right.
bison. Like,
Right. Well, we could keep on going through the photographs so we kind of see more, and then I'll kind of talk quickly so I don't get too entrenched in just one. But and I can kind of speak openly, kind of more. The hive mind, I feel like I've become part of their consciousness, where and there's almost like I've got these portraits of their eyes, and the animals, there's like an opening. So why is it that the one particular art collector's like, I really connect to that? It's like a portrait of a buffalo looking right at the camera. But then you'll see, millions of other photographs photographed by the bison. And I think there's some type of like exchange that happens between me as the conduit, as the photographer, and the animal. There's a connection, and that connection is felt. It's not seen.
That you saw the movie The Grizzly Man that Werner Herzog did about the guy who went and became part of the bear pack, tribe, whatever you call them, and then obviously at the end they felt he was not part of the pack. But it's an interesting idea, right?
Well, yeah, because maybe he brought in somebody else, that wasn't his
right.
girlfriend or whatever, who didn't have that,
right,
maybe connection.
He wasn't a made man.
Yeah.
Hanging out with a bunch of cool bears, everyone's great. You bring your girlfriend to the party, and they just maul you.
Nobody invited her,
So this image is another one from elevation that's got to be higher if I'm looking at these peaks.
Very high.
That's like 7,000-10,000.
Where are the Spanish peaks?
Maybe.
Yeah, those
are
10,000. Those are up in Big Sky, Montana.
And why? Do you know why they're called Spanish peaks? Do you have any sense of that, or is it just what I mean?
I should know that.
Like, do they they look like Spain? Or maybe some Spanish guy named them that, or a woman.
I should know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is an what's the inversion? Oh, the inversion being the cloud, the weather pattern here, because the clouds are below the mountains.
Yes. So do you want to know my philosophy about the inversion?
Absolutely.
Okay. I feel like the matrix, the whatever, these kind of this unraveling that we're kind of opening up to in this current state of affair, like, wow, I thought that was true, but it's not true. I think we've been living in an inversion, and we're actually trying to flip ourselves right side up to like the truth of like every being, every heart in every human being is the ultimate truth. This deep kind of knowing, this deep connection, this deep understanding, or I should say understanding, that we're all connected as one. So that's like the deep-rooted truth in my psychosis. Even the way we hug, we hug right to right when your heart is here, and actually the inversion is this way. So I challenge you guys to go hug people from heart to heart, and then see how it feels. Everything potentially is.
So you go over the other.
Yeah, well, give your daughter a hug, heart to heart, right now. See what that feels like. Left to left.
We're left to left. My left and your left.
Yeah, okay. The opposite of the way you've been doing it your whole life.
Good timing, Viv. Hold on, my daughter just walked in. I'm going to hug her now.
Okay, heart to heart.
You got to hug like this. Does that feel better than hugging like this?
So that's just.
Can we go back to the picture of the bison and show Vivi this? We'll see.
I'm going back.
Can you go back one, Jay? So this is our friend Keen. He took these pictures.
How did he do that?
Oh, what does that look like to you? Like, what does it feel like to you?
It kind of looks like a big. It kind of looks like a horse that something went wrong with it. Like a horse that something happened to it. Something like that.
Okay.
Because why?
I don't know. It kind of looks like a buffalo for some reason.
What's the difference between a bison and
Okay.
a buffalo? Is there a difference?
Tomato.
Okay.
It's just
Love it.
a way of saying it.
Um,
Well, flip through a couple more photographs. Let her see some and see what arises. Because as a child, I'm trying, and we can keep on kind of going. When we keep on moving through, let her receive it. Because
Did you hike up those mountains to get the pictures?
so a lot of them are photographed from a helicopter, so they're done from an aerial perspective. What does that appear to you?
That kind of looks like a drone that's going like over something to get like pictures.
are they?
Kind of.
Is it water or is that tree line?
That's
Okay.
water. That's water, and it's kind of the juxtaposition there is these really soft line gestures, kind of played within the see on the lower right, those kind of hard fragments of hard lines, and just the way they play off of each other, and just the
It looks like if I
merging of-
saw that without context, I'd think it was a picture of the inside of an eyeball.
And
like
now we're getting into it, Hayes. That's beautiful. Now we're getting into it. This whole idea that nature is outside of you, that it's separate from you, is the greatest inversion of reality. Nature is you. Like within, and you'll see a lot of these abstracts. I noticed that's like, wow, that's like looks like the heart, or we'll keep on going. That looks like the veins of my blood, in my body. And you start to look at your skin and the way the depth of the age, or this one, for example.
Right.
I studied this one for a while, and I cannot. It's so sci-fi. I can't understand even what it is. Like, it looks like nice. like a person's index finger cut out and replaced with a tiny forest. That's what I've landed on.
What about you, Hayes?
Oh, like someone, I'm trying to see it through Jay's things. Like someone took a scalpel to a thumb and trees grew out of it.
That's right. It's like, and there's you can see the scale because of the sun. It's like a massive finger.
This one tripped me because I couldn't tell the light source, that the sun is in back of something that looks like it's taken looking down, but you see the sun behind it. So the vantage point would be you were looking at this on top of you, like this. Unless that's a reflection. But I don't know what would be framing that. What would be, how is it? It's an island.
It's a reflection of the water.
Yes.
The sun is popping back through the water. It's a body of land that goes out to the water, and it almost, if you look down at the sandbar there, it almost appears kind of like an arm or a thumb or something a little bit more human, kind of like that soft line gesture that moves out to the circular pattern. But the expression of kind of what it is somewhat irrelevant. It's like kind of when some of these abstract pieces, it's more of a what feels. And when I felt this from photographing from that aerial perspective, it just like really hit me. I'm like, wow, like what world do we live in? It's and people could maybe fly by this or even hang out on this little kind of sand beach dune, but not realize that like I don't know. It really is us. Like we are nature. The consciousness starts first, and then it's a manifestation of the physical. If we're electromagnetic, then is it possible that the Earth is an expression of our consciousness, that we are all connected to everything. I mean,
I read
this is what I
a
see.
book about mushrooms, and of course part of it was hallucinogenic mushrooms, but also all the other kinds of mushrooms. Just and they talk about the our gut biome and the similarity to the basically the only reason the dirt stays together is because it's connected by the network of mushrooms underneath the surface of the earth keeps the dirt together, keeps it from blowing off into piles. And so the gut biome is apparently they're seeing similar patterns to what this sort of under crust mushroom uh, society looks like. It's in the world of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I feel that. I actually have had an experience where it changed my life, where I actually entered into that medicine, and it opened up a whole new door of feeling and seeing and expressing, and not something that I actually need to even continue to seek. It was actually like all anchored in of that remembrance that, yeah, that as within, so without, everything is all connected, and everything's perfectly divine and created as is. So I have so much gratitude and honor, and I'm so humbled by it all. It almost brings me into, I don't know what I don't know, but and it's hard to even go from that vantage point, because
that's right. I'm going to use that just in like around my house when chaos is happening. I'm just going to say, hey, I don't know what I don't know, guys. Just
it's a good
give
way.
me a moment here.
There's so much truth to it too.
I looking at that last image of the island, I thought of, I don't know who said it. I picked it up somewhere, but our art is making the familiar strange and the strange familiar. And it's the same premise if you're writing a joke, that you could take something really obvious like a Q-tip or something and just try to make it seem absurd. Or if you take something really absurd like a celestial event and try to make it seem really familiar, it's a trick to it. I was working on this bit, a joke about fly fishing, and the terminology of fly fishing is absurd. It can be absurd, but it's really familiar to people who fly fish all the time. They're talking about hopper droppers and woolly boogers and all this stuff. And when you make fun of that, there's the same kind of approach I see to photography that you do, Keen, is like you take something that would maybe you're flying over in an airplane or you catch with the glimpse of your eye, and the way it's framed and presented makes you think of it in abstract terms.
I want to see that. I want to see that gig with the fish and the hopper, the dropper. Like, I mean, I've been around like soul fishermen and people who do it for a living. I mean, it's a whole different language, and I love it. You know, I just do it for fun, but it's like there's a whole different, like, you know, to spend all this time and energy, and it'll be like potentially like helicopter in. The guides will be there with the boat, float a river for days to get out this one little hatch, this one little fly to catch this one fish. You know, it's just
it's crazy. And then the terminology. What about a guy sitting there saying, "Hey, throw on your thick rubbers and come over here, help me bang this hole." I'm like, wait, what? That's weird. Wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
What?
So now this is more. This is a herd here. Gosh, if you hadn't had it titled, I would have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a herd of elk moving through the land. But what was interesting is the combination of the inversion and the other land that's right there with no horizon.
I imagine that elk probably don't let you get too close, right?
Yeah, so they start to move if you're moving too close. So this is shot with like pretty significant telephoto lens. So we're pretty far away in the helicopter, and the way the light is actually kind of moving through, that's actually just kind of a little bit of either that could either, I forget when this was done, but either cotton or snow will kind of like move through the light and kind of make a little bit more ethereal kind of look to it.
Do you,
So
when you are on the ground near herds of animals, do you ever talk to them?
I actually kind of speak to them through breathing. It's like I talk to myself all the time. I don't know if you
Well,
guys do that.
I play
And
golf.
then
I play golf 7 days a week, often alone, and so and I try not to do this, but often I will scold myself for not being sort of strong enough to hit a certain iron the expected distance. And I'm out there yelling like a banshee at myself. And I know I look like a fucking
yeah,
maniac, but once you play 7 days a week, you are by definition a maniac. And so, but I end
yeah,
up there's a herd of about 20 deer at the golf course where I play, and they're very used to humans in golf carts, and so when you often come up on them and I will talk to them and be like, hey, it's just me. Don't worry. Just you can stay there. I'm just going to go through. Don't worry about it. And I'll just say, hey, and I'll talk to them. And go, hey, Lay, I like the antler, and just it's all good. I try to put them at ease to try to see if they will not move when I come through. And they get close, but at the end they're like, I'm out of here, and they ditch off. But when they walk across, I always stop and I don't, you like some people will just hit over their heads, but I'm like, I hit a deer once on a golf course with a second ball. The first ball went, I'm like, fuck, I didn't hit it well, so I hit the second one and hit the deer in the knee, and I'm like, it didn't make a sound. It just went, and it just three-legged limped off the thing, and I was like, first of all, I shouldn't have hit the second ball. That was unnecessary. Second of all, I should have asked the deer to leave. But and now I'm like, I'm not doing
yeah.
that
You
again.
probably
I'm
should.
not doing that.
Yeah, you should probably get that opt-in. Kind of like that kind of opening for them to move. I think animals actually can feel your
Yeah.
intention. So whether you're speaking or breathing or moving in, if you're attached to some type of like outcome. I find with animals and herds, I remember one time I came up on a hill with my camera early morning light, and that's another thing in Montana when you're hiking before the sun's even before it's dark, the sun has not come up yet in bear country, and then but you're also trying to capture photographs of wildlife, so you have to stay quiet. Is really like still like I tend to be like, hey, how do I get uncomfortable and comfortable again? And that's I bring that into my life. Like if you can actually adapt and get uncomfortable and then get comfortable again, and then get uncomfortable and comfortable again, well, you're kind of building some layers of like, hey, I'm growing here. But I was walking up and I was super quiet, and then I saw like a bear track, and then I was like, well, I know I'm trying to get this herd. I know they're up there. There's like 300 elk, and if you kind of get that movement, that's what I was going for. So I was like, I guess this will be my destiny. This is what I'm so, convince myself like I've come this far. And I didn't see the bear, but I saw the bear's track. It was pretty fresh. But then I came up on the hill with the herd of elk. There was probably 300 plus. And I did get the photograph where they came up and they're back to that rim lighting. They're right there. And what was fascinating is all 300, this is where like they're just like all communicating psychic. It's like a psychic communication. They all just like looked right here, simultaneously looked at me, got the photograph, and then simultaneously about 3 to 5 seconds later, and then they rushed off, and the whole vibration of the earth, the whole land was like shaking, like, and then my heart just started beating. I was like, man, that's like the best high ever. Like I was just like feeling it. And so it's just wild, like, because it just it puts things in perspective. I think when you're kind of play and communicate, and you get to like observe animals, because I mean they're definitely a streamline of consciousness. Now, if I came up on 300 people, this is what's fascinating about like animals. they say that that the spirit runs through animals and plants, and then the soul is unique. It's like it's said that like every soul is a unique fractal of expression, which is beautiful because everybody could do something unique. If I came up on 300 people, some people would run, some people would scream, maybe somebody would pull out a gun, like you don't know, it'd be chaos. It'd be like, so that's the irony of this individual sovereign soul. You don't know what they're going to do.
Have you thought of on that? Have you thought of going into urban landscapes and capturing them?
Yeah, I actually like my next project this fall. Well, I'm going to do some more projects in between, but this fall I'm aiming to go into New York City and photograph from a helicopter, just kind of like the movement of the way the light moves through the buildings, the way the kind of migrations of the people move through, and incorporate that into the work. Because my intention is to photograph the whole planet and bring this body of work into museums, and this remembrance that it's all connected. There is no separation. It's all one. So that would be fascinating. I don't know what it will look like because I haven't done that, but yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Do you? I have two questions.
I'd love to see it.
One, do you ever run into any people out there?
Rarely. At the hours I go out.
When you do,
anybody.
I grew up in the Chicago suburbs and I lived in New York City. I live in Los Angeles now. Like, I keep a close eye on these stories about, hikers who get murdered. Because I'm just like, there's just no law out there, right? Like, do you carry a gun?
No law. I don't, but I have many friends who move through the mountains that do.
Yeah.
I just choose not to. I almost feel like I'm attracting something where, and there are stories. I mean, these stories are real. I mean, there's mountain man out there. I mean, I remember when I was up in Alaska. Have you guys ever been up there in the high mountains in like Chugach Range or the big? I
did a stand-up show in Anchorage.
Oh, did you? Yeah. There's like Alaska's. I mean,
no doubt. It was a drunken, wild crowd, and I'm like, these are criminals.
Oh yeah. It's pretty wild.
I was, to your point, Jay, I was in the Sawtooth Mountains in Idaho. I was probably 5 miles, 6 miles into this trail on a ridge, and I had my dog with me. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, which is like the first rule. You got to let people know where generally you're going. And I happened upon a dude in the woods, and not like just like a guy wearing Lululemons running down the trail. I mean, this guy had been out there for a long time. He was, in my mind, he was totally emaciated. He was about 6'5", big white beard. He had like a windbreaker on that just looked like a tarp covering bones. And my dog I stopped on a rock and I was just sitting out there, and then my dog started barking. She never barks at anyone, and she started barking at this guy who I didn't know was there. And I became immediately apologetic. I still had all these polite manners from civilization. I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I gotta get my leash." And this guy looked at me, and I would have felt totally safe, but he did not take his right hand out of his windbreaker pocket. So, normally you just keep talking like, "Hey, how you doing? Where are you going? What's going on?" But he had just blank eyes, and he had his hand in his right pocket. And then I leashed my dog. I brought her back to me because I'm thinking I might have to get out of here. And then I stopped and I said to the guy, like, "Hey, are you all right, man?" Because he was kind of speaking non sequiturs, and he was like confused. And I didn't have any food or anything on me to give him. I also desperately wanted to get out of there. But it was the shortest and longest interaction I've ever had in my life, because again, his hand was in that. So I got my distance, And he was like, yeah. I go, listen, if you just go 5 miles down here, you'll be near a road, and, kind of guided. And then I just walked away, and then I just started hauling ass to get distance. And I got down, and once I got back into cell phone reception, I called the sheriff's office, and they transferred me over to another office. And finally I got this guy. He's like, where are you? And I'm like, I was here. I was up on this trail, Long Ridge, and I encountered this guy. I was essentially calling in a wellness check on him. And they didn't do anything. And the guy on the phone said, a lot of people go into the wilderness just to expire. And I was like, no, I did not know that. But, God forbid, if he is up there and something happens, at least check on his health, or someone else won't encounter him and be as freaked out as I was. So that happened to me. And that night I was at dinner, and I told a friend that story that I just told you guys. He sent me an article in the paper 2 days later. They found the guy's body in the woods, and it had been started to decompose and had been eaten by animals. So I called the same number that I called when I got out. And this article in the paper, identified the guy and said this, and said that he had come from Oregon and come over this pass. And I was really upset. And I said, guys, I called you and filed a report and went into the station. I told you this guy was out there. And they just looked at me and gave me like it's Chinatown, Jake. I was like, shit. Like that happened. But I did not like running into a singular individual alone in the woods.
That
Like,
is
it was
that is among my great fears. It's
without any
you
like animals I'm fine with, but like I don't know. That chilled me to my bone.
Animal. Thanks for sharing. Animals are predictable, a human being in kind of in their mind, and you don't know what they've been through or the tribulations or where they're at in their state of being, kind of that kind of goes back to what I was just sharing. Like, it's pretty abstract. You don't know what's going to happen. Person's got his hand there. An animal, like, they have predictive behavior, you're
right.
So
right.
That's Jay. You should go up to northern Idaho. Definitely has got him where he's at. Come up to Montana, and then if you want more of an adventure to maybe write some more stories and face your fears directly. What did I say? This kind of goes with what I wrote down the other day. Change only feels scary to the one running from it. May this be the opportunity to see with new eyes. I don't know. I just wrote that down, Jay. So maybe you're being called in.
If I do this, I can guarantee you I'm going to have a windbreaker, and my right hand's going to be inside there. And I don't even like those machines. But okay. Is
that's a dope quote, Kene.
Yeah, I just wrote that down from awakening when I woke up. It's may this be an opportunity to see with new eyes. And I think it's actually like what we're being called into now, because we're just, let's just face it. We're in like, you can't grasp anything, like make it make sense kind of thing. Or we're at the point where, you can't really hold anything. And this, kind of year of the politics and the movement and the energy within the kind of international sector, it's time to actually maybe see things with new eyes. And that takes courage, it takes vulnerability. It takes a little bit of wonder.
Change is only scary to the one who's running, did you say?
Yeah, from the one running from it. May this be an opportunity to see with new eyes.
I assume this is water, right?
Yes. So this is the lower falls in Yellowstone National Park. It's about 200 plus feet of water that rushes down into it's ultimately the Yellowstone River. Have you guys ever
been
to
Yellowstone? I don't know if I've been to this part of it. I don't know
this part.
I like. It's interesting now, like having heard you talk about get closer. How you remove context. Like this could be a forest on fire, Like you don't show the edges, which makes you go, what is it? I mean, the only thing that clued me in was lower falls. Um,
and zoom in. I don't know if you can zoom in on the image where the dark part in the middle to the left there.
uh,
Are you able to kind
I
of
don't know if
zoom
I
in
have
a little
zooming
bit
capabilities.
on
Let's
your?
see here. I do not.
But while you're trying to, yeah, okay. So it's kind of hard to see in this little screen, but it when you zoom in on that part, it actually appears to be like the womb of the of the of the mother, of the female, where we all come from. It has the patterns and shapes of uh, the portal of where every baby exits and where every um, um, baby is created.
Huh.
But I'm trying
Yeah.
to express it where you can kind of come up with what that is, but it seems like it's almost like a portal. And so this what's interesting about
I
this
thought
one.
the same thing too, Keen. I just didn't want to say vagina.
Yeah, you can say
tried to say-
vagina. Yeah. Mhm. Well, it's truly, and there's so many different kind of triggering words from the inversion of even how we've back to the inversion of how we think about sex. Sex to me is a sacred energy exchange. It's actually at the level of life itself. It is at the point of creation, and the inversion is it's kind of been sold and told in Hollywood, where you guys come from, is like something that you take, something that you get, something that I'm trying to perform to get something, and it's actually the ultimate sacred act. And so, yeah, this to me like expresses creation in itself. And it was when this photograph was taken. I don't know if you guys ever heard a couple years ago when the roads broke from Yellowstone, outside of Yellowstone National Park, where the roads ripped out. It made the news. Were you aware of this, Jay or Hayes?
Yeah, it was
No.
radical.
Yeah. So the water was recorded at the highest volume, and it blew out houses, bridges, roads, out of Yellowstone into the Paradise Valley, which is out of Gardner into Livingston. And I was aware of this happening, and so this was photographed at 5:05 in the morning. With the high, this is the highest volume of water I've ever photographed, and it's been recorded. And so it's a massive, massive volume of water, which creates the water is unique fractals of every water molecule reflects the light in a different way. So actually, when you zoom into this piece, like this piece is a one of one. Right? There's only one that I'll ever create. And when that print is sold, it's going to be 5 by 7 feet. And we're going to incorporate a special kind of lighting to go to go with the piece. So you can see that it has the highest tonal range of light that I've ever photographed in existence. So along my career, I'll create these one of ones, these one pieces of art that one art collector will have and nobody else will have it. So, and it has to be super unique, very significant.
What's the sizing of when you capture the image? Does the image determine how you're going to ultimately frame it and the size of it?
Somewhat. It usually has to do kind of more of addition numbers and the uniqueness and the significance of the pieces. Yeah, we can just kind of let it roll, and then people can kind of digest on their own. This one I may talk about real quickly, but I print everything fairly big, like anywhere from 3 by 5 feet to 5 by 7 feet, and those are that's the typical range. But I just printed one piece that was 10 feet by 6 feet, and that has a powerful way of kind of like jaw dropping. You actually, I kind of feel like when it's that big, I mean, you obviously have to have the home or the space to handle that type of volume, but it's almost like you enter into the landscape, into the space itself. You lose yourself in it. So this one,
So this just Yeah.
Anyway.
This is beautiful. They've got two bison walking on a trail, but they're both walking alone, and they're in some type of partnership, but they're also walking with their shadows. It's pretty cool, and you couldn't even the angle of it is you're shooting down on the animal, but that's not what reveals the animal. The shadow is what reveals what type of animal you're looking at.
Yeah, and that was through my own kind of evolution of my own healing process, through my own kind of intimate relationship with my, kind of people in my life, was I realized that the significance of that relationship can only be really continue to evolve if I integrate my own shadow, and that shadow is my own unconsciousness, my own ways of, like, kind of the ways I've kind of unconsciously talked bad about myself, or oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not, I should have done this. Even the way we speak to ourselves, like my bad. And I, even with my kids, when they say my bad, I say, well, let's try the languages. Try again. Try again. So all these, like, kind of unconscious, things we kind of do to ourselves. It's actually, we're being called into integrating our own shadow. Then we can actually open up to other and be like, hey, this is all of me, the darkness, the lightness, the craziness. Like, you want to get crazy together, you want to get, like, we all have it, so we may as well, openly speak of it. We have these parts of us that are kind of you don't put it on your profile. You're like, hey, I do these things. I found ways, that I'm manipulating people that, I was totally unaware of, but now I'm aware of it. So I'm going to speak of it. Because, like photography, the term I use, you can't heal until you reveal. And so photography is just revealing and concealing light. You're doing both. You're revealing the light and you're concealing the light. So it's the duality
Bruce
of it.
Lee
Polarity.
said that you should never speak badly about yourself because your brain doesn't understand that the context or the difference, really. Like, the brain is like listening and thinking, oh, okay. If you speak badly of yourself, your brain starts to accept that that's the actual truth. So when I call myself a stupid,
Yes.
weak ass motherfucker when I hit a 6-iron 170 yards instead of 185 yards, Bruce Lee would say, don't do that.
Yeah. Or maybe don't even say, maybe don't even say don't do it, because that's another way of subtly shaming yourself, just like, almost making joke. Oh, there you go again. Jay Jr., the little part of you that's the child in you that's just speaking. And you're like, fuck you, Jay. I got this. Like, Jay Jr., you sit to the side. Jay Sr. is going to take this one, okay? You little child, just sit down. I'm going to show you how it's done. It's like this, who do you have conversations with the most? Who are you talking to the most in your life? Who is your most intimate relationship?
Yeah.
It's yourself. You talk to yourself. You're with yourself. You can't run and hide. There's nowhere you can move that's going to change that. So that's that Significant Other is a series that's based on my own kind of reflection in my own life and my relationship with my own, people in my life and myself, ultimately. Self-love.
Yeah. I mean, we should probably get to the vouch. Are you ready for that, or do you want to?
Yeah. We can roll through it now. When we can, we kind of just kept them rolling here. Yeah, that doesn't that look like a piece that you can kind of split between the two?
Yeah.
And like, see how the gesture
folded in on each other.
Yeah, and we just kind of like let it play for a little bit. Is there anything else you guys, before we do to that, you want to, ask or express or?
Well, I was curious as to how you got into photography. How'd you find your craft?
Oh,
when did you find it?
Yeah. Well, when I was 11 years old, I we took a little field trip, and we all got these little disposable cameras, and I was like, oh wow, I would always kind of be able to like express myself, and as always, I'm getting better at. Oh, that's the one right there, Glacier. When I went up to Yellowstone and the helicopter dropped, well, I got this photograph because I wanted the balance between that peak sea on the right that you can see just the lights just rimming on it. And you have to remember this piece is like 4x6 or 5x7 feet, so you get to see that
Uh-huh.
second peak when you're looking at it in a larger scale. But I was going with that kind of balance between those two ridges and the way the ridge kind of runs across, and the way the snows kind of just, just a thin layer of snow on that ridge, which kind of really makes it just like, I don't know, it's hard to express, but it just feels like, oh man, I feel that power. I feel that kind of like anchoring into this earth. So, yeah, that was one where I was like, whoa, okay, let's get out of here. The mountains always, what I have learned is the mountains will always win. If you spend too much time in the high alpine thinking nothing lives up there, okay, you have to remember that. And eventually, if you're, kind of the human ego, like, oh, I'm going to do this and I want to stay up there, the mountains with exposure and time will eventually just swoop you up and spit you out and say
How
thanks for
long are
coming.
you in the mountains? Like on a trip? A week?
Yeah, I'll go there for a week. I'll go there for 5 to 10 days. Typically, kind of move into the, settle into the land, and find myself kind of even sitting with
What do
those
you eat?
mountain goats and stuff. Oh, I got it down to like kind of fruit and meat, and some
Like
nuts and
dried
berries. Kind of
meat? You don't
kind of
actually
keep it
cook
really
anything,
simple.
right?
Yeah. Well, it depends on if I go deep out. If I go deep out, just like jerky and stuff. But if I'm staying in like my truck camper as like a base,
Yeah.
I'll cook up some meat. But
John
yeah,
Muir
how,
used to
how I
just have
got how I
loaves of
got
bread.
what do you do? Loaves of bread?
Yeah, John Muir would like just take like
Oh yeah,
seven loaves of stick bread and throw them in a backpack, and he was the first guy to, or the first
kind of to document.
European descended person to walk around the American West, and he just wrote a journal. If you ever read John Muir's journals, they were part of romanticizing the American West, but he wasn't putting a lot of flourish on it. He was just writing down what he saw. And then when they would ship all the documents back east, people would be reading the literal accounts of what this guy out in the West was seeing. He would describe like a certain type of pine or a reindeer hoof or something. And it was just very literal and objective. And it was part of making people
Head
want to
west.
start
Are,
moving west. Yeah.
Yeah,
these are
that
wolves.
exploration, right? Yeah, it's
I imagine you wouldn't
wolves.
want to get too close to those guys.
No, no. This is actually photographed. So I went over Yellowstone. This is done from an aerial perspective too. And this was done during when the Yellowstone during the lockdown was shut down. There was no people in Yellowstone, but I was flying over it to create art, and you can actually what I was able to see in that time frame when the park was closed was fascinating. It was almost it was almost like I got a time traveler and I got to go back in time. And going back to that wolf piece, it's actually if you want to pop right back to it, the female is moving. The female is actually moving out front, and the male is the black wolf in the back as the protector. So they'll move through that, and they actually went to their herd. They went to their pack, their wolf pack, around a rock about a mile distance. Their hair tracked them, and then they had a carcass there, and there was about 11 wolves that were all just feeding off this, and they were the two to bring their pack into it.
I read
they led
about
them to it.
this that the way they organize the pack is that I believe they have the young guys up front, and then they have sort of a woman and children thing, and then the old, and then the strongest.
Uh-huh.
I think the old might be second, and then the women and the children, and then the
Uh-huh.
strongest of the wolves is the last guy. He's like the final.
Yes.
He's
The
the
protector.
It's just interesting how they organize themselves.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of awareness and information there, as we kind of there's so much division and potentially kind of like people trying to be like righteous or whatever, but there's kind of like these elements of like if we all start working together and start seeing for what it is, we can actually work together more as a pack. There's a quote that I like, that a lone wolf is a dead wolf. So if a wolf ends up being like, you know what, I'm gonna go do it on my own. Hayes and Jay, yeah, I'm done with you guys. I'm done with you over there. It's kind of like your old man that you were speaking of up in the woods. You eventually will die because we're pack animals. We actually want that connection. It's the deepest yearning. It has nothing to do with money or status or anything like that. It's like we want to be part of a pack. And so it's don't remove yourself from too many people. You'll eventually die. That one is a stream that I went back in the winter and then photographed in the summer and the winter and then merged them together as one piece.
Oh,
that is cool.
And then what's kind of beautiful, what's beautiful about this piece is that tree in the middle of the stream right there. I don't know if you can kind of see it, but it's on the right there. That's a representation in the expression of what I'm speaking to in the artist. Is that's the sovereign soul. That's every soul that's out there, that's connected to all the land, to all the spirit. And what do they say that said that this is ultimately your dream. You're dreaming it up. You're dreaming all it up. So that soul is like, you're the expression of life. If whether you think it's, what is the quote, whether you're right or wrong, you're right. It's something like that. Henry Ford or one of those. Like, it's basically like you're the perceiver, and ultimately you receive whatever you perceive. And this one too, so that's hard to in scale. It's hard on this little screen. That's a huge, like 1,000-pound mountain goat on the left, in this big kind of cave mountain range, like gigantic. And when this is printed at the size of this piece is 85 inches wide by 65 inches high. So that's a pretty large diptych piece. And that grizzly bear is a massive grizzly bear out in the middle of a snowfield. There's actually, in the photograph, when it's printed, you can see the texture of the snow, and then you can see the texture of the light, because the photographs are printed on this fiber-based paper that picks up, it's the same paper that was printed back from the Greats, and it picks up the total and
this particular
range.
Bear just wasn't into hibernating. Is that what we're taking from this?
The springtime they move. It just hit the first one day of end of March, I think it was, or beginning of April. Isn't that fascinating how bears can go into this deep hibernation meditation for almost
incredible
5-6 months and then come out of it? And this is an expression of the regrowth that we're currently in our time. We're kind of growing new roots. As something is dying, something else is growing. So as we continue to see kind of old belief systems die off, there's new energy behind it. So everything's completely balanced. So just a reminder, this is kind of a not a friendly reminder, but as you're getting infiltrated by more and more doom and gloom, more and more darkness, well, everything's totally balanced in expression all the time in existence. There's a lot of light, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of love and openness that's happening simultaneously to the darkness. So just remember that when you're being put into this.
Yeah, what channel is that on?
But you're not gonna see that, because you're gonna, that the channels in that is in your consciousness. It's happening right now. What you guys are doing right now, connecting with people, that's bringing people together. It's on this channel, the Mustache Tales. We're on the channel.
There is a lot of light and beauty. There really is.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's like just to remember that, because we're this is one I hang out with for a really long time, and I'm pretty close. But it's the texture of the fur that kind of attracted me in, and then there's a nice eye contact. People really like this one's kind of a new project on the California coast, and that's the land meeting the ocean, northern coastal ocean, and the way the sand dune kind of moves in between. It's that duality I'm speaking of. Everything's completely balanced. So a lot of the work I do is that expression of balance.
Do you use the same pilot?
Trying to find that balance. Different pilots for different regions. Like this is photographed in by a different pilot in north or southern Utah, and that's on the California coast too. Just the way the light moves through that water. What do you guys see? Because or going back to that last one.
Well, the California coastline, I thought it was the striations of a rock.
This one going like
the horizontal one.
So horizontal one after?
The one after. Yeah. What arises for you guys when you see the next one?
Sorry.
The one after that.
Yeah, I mean that looks like something that was taken by a rover way out in space.
This one.
A distant planet.
This one right here, yeah.
I guess I'm looking at a sandbar. And I think the ocean is above it and the bay is below it.
Okay. Yeah. The ocean's wild. I mean, this is kind of new for me to photograph water and ocean, but it is like when I'm flying over there. I mean, it's just so open, so vast. It actually, like, compared to the mountains, I can kind of get my grasp. Like, oh, there's the land, and the way even these big mountains kind of move back down. I'm kind of over the ocean. I'm like, gosh, where am I? And so this is the balance between the desert on the left, and then if you go back to it's the desert on the left, and then the ocean on the right. But I mean, it almost appears to be the same, but it's not.
Is that Baja?
So the one on the left, that's just down there in the Canyonlands Island on southern Utah, and then the one on the right is the coast, California coast.
It's incredible how you found the similarities in scale and.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually like. It's not like I've attached anything when I go out. I'm not like, okay, I'm looking for this to merge up with this, or this is my objective to go photograph this. I just allow myself to stay open and free. And the big key is unattached, not attached to anything. And so what I'm finding is that, like, wow, these pieces of what I'm photographing are like, later on, by going through the editing process with my team, I'm like, wow, they're starting to look the same. And that's kind of that remembrance of everything's all interconnected. It's not just like a philosophy, it's shown in the visual. It's a big old blue whale, size of a school bus, but the way the light moves through it and kind of creates those diagonal patterns, and that the way the light just moves through the water.
I think that would be an exhausting life.
Beautiful.
To be a whale.
As a whale?
Hard to rest.
Yeah. Yeah, they're always moving. I mean, have you guys ever been up there in Big Sur area? That's where this is.
Yeah.
But yeah, look at this right here. I mean, where are we? Like,
I feel like we're on that planet in Total Recall. where yeah, I mean, where they're digging for that unobtainium or whatever that thing is they're trying to get.
That's what tripped me, like when the Mars rover images started coming back, which was kind of huge. But there was something also really familiar about it. Like it didn't, I didn't feel that it shocked everybody. I mean, there were real pictures coming back from other planets, and people weren't like, whoa, you got to see this one, you got to see that one, because it looked like some of the stuff that you would see here. But you had to put it in context, like, oh no, that's way out there. Those turtles.
Two big rocks in the ocean merging with the water, kind of concaving up, and then the turbulence of the water kind of moving through is actually, it appears to be almost like the two into one. Like it's like almost like the I mean, I'm just gonna say it's like the semen meeting the egg. It's the two into one, the mergence of two, creating the connection of two back into the one life, back into the two, into the one. So the sacred energy that's always there.
That's what I love about the scope of your work, Keen, is you can, some things feel biological, and then you look at a landscape image like this, and it's from way high, and it's a totally different perspective.
I'm going to shut my window.
Can you start seeing the kind of the connection almost of the work? Like if you were able to see my work without even my name on it, maybe you would see it as expression of me.
I see that. I see that. I see that like in the way you describe things and the way you communicate, and then also in your work. The other thing that I can't believe that we've been doing is looking at only these have been black and white images. You know, it feels, I don't know, like vibrant, and like there's more than just two colors being shown here, you know?
Yeah. That's it's just that whole painting of light, just to see it in its purest form. And so kind of just it's like an infinite invitation to move into more curiosity of I don't know what I don't know, and just moving into the unknown and finding
Looks like
peace
a
in that.
crayfish. Like
okay. Yeah.
Like that didn't quite make it back to the water.
Yeah, that's the land. That's the out in the desert though, in the southern Utah. I don't know if you guys have ever been out there, but that is a place. This is out there that if you're not prepped with like where you're going or water or moving through the massive body of land, like you could die out there because you can get lost and like, wait, I thought I went this way and I went that way, and then all of a sudden you're out there with no water or very little life that can survive.
Do you have that
I found it.
that service that's like you can push a panic button and they'll come get you?
No, I should do that.
A friend of mine does a lot of solo trekking through the mountains, and he takes boat rides out to the Channel Islands alone and gets into the water whenever he sees killer whales, whatever. And he had a button. He took me out there, and he goes, if anything goes south with me, just press this button. And I'm like, shouldn't I just drive the boat back? He goes, yeah, but if you're off a few degrees, you might end up in Singapore. I'm like, okay, I'll just sit quietly and wait for them to come get me. You got to go. Have you ever been on the Channel Islands? It is.
I have not.
They call it the American Galapagos, and it is a level of wildlife that. And I'll tell you this. I'm not proud of this, but I cry about once a decade, and like there's like a I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a machismo thing. Like the thing that makes me cry is there was a certain chord in the movie Carlito's Way. They hit a certain violin, and it was in the credits, and I started crying. And I'm like, I cry based on music on a certain tone. But I was out there in the middle of this ocean in a little 2-seater boat, and I was looking at at one. I mean, you're in a what looks like maybe 10,000 birds at once, like pelicans are right in front of the boat in a V. And then there was a point where we went into multiple pods of dolphins that I swear to God had to be 4,000 dolphins. I swear to God, like 360 dolphins.
Wow.
And we get to the Channel Islands, and there are 250 seals. And I got in the water, but I was overcome with fear. And I got right out of the water, and within seconds, the bull seal had come right next to the boat, basically telling me to stay the fuck out of the water because he thought I was going to go to the island and bang all the seal ladies, which I was thinking of. He's right, but I was like, I got to get out of here. But it made me weep the beauty of all that just raw animal life. I recommend the Channel Islands, and if you need somebody, you could go out with my friend, and then if something happens, he'll just press a button. He'll get you guys out of
there. Yeah, perfect.
And we're going to have the Carlito's Way score on a needle drop, just so we can.
I just wrote that down too. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think that tears, where I've accessed. It took me later into my adult life. It's almost like the deepest, and I feel when you were expressing that, it's like this deepest gratitude of like, because it's like that deep gratitude of like connecting, and and that I was kind of saying some words of like, that's that like that deep empathy and openness and that of not knowing, and I think what nature does is it brings us back to that curiosity and wonder and awe, just like we all have within us, that child self of like watching watching life, observing it, and how powerful it is. There's no amount of external stimulation that can like kind of bring that, that's authentic.
It made me feel, this is a kind of a dark example, but there's in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they open the Ark of the Covenant, the main Nazi, he sees all these like spiritual, beautiful ghosts coming out of the Ark, and he's overcome. He's like, it's beautiful, and then it turns into fucking evil, and he starts melting. I'm like, I felt that moment right before. I mean, I didn't obviously melt, but I was like, it's beautiful. Yeah. Like I couldn't keep it in. I was so overcome with joy, not Nazi joy, but just joy, good old joy. I guess the point is that even a Nazi can see beauty. I mean, maybe that means we're all human, and it kind of, we're all together in this, aren't we?
Yeah.
Mine's war movies are a big trigger for me. War movies with huge scores, and they just get me. I think that's probably in some DNA that I got put into my body when I came out. Like it's just an automatic trigger when I listen to these stories. Keen, before we go into the vouch, tell us where we can find all this, all your work. Can you share with us? Like, I know it's in galleries, but also if people want to check it out directly, where can they go?
Yeah, the fastest way to check out the body of work is just to go to kenesperry.com. So just how you spell it is KENESPERRY.com, and then that's just the collection of work. And you can also go onto the Vimeo channel, which is the Vimeo/Kene Sperry. And that's actually almost an ongoing diary of films as I'm creating the process. I I have I have I have a film going on as I speak and I shoot, so it's actually kind of coming along the journey of the art process, which is kind of fun to watch. Because it's happening. So like I said, as I move into these different environments, into the cityscape and into the different parts of the world, I continue to have these like little volumes of little 2-minute films that kind of share that. And I'm kind of most excited about that because to me the journey is the prize. I'm at no destination. I'm just enjoying the ride, and I'm human. I go through the ups and downs and all the rounds, and then kind of go back to the moment, back to the journey. Because you guys have had a lot of success through your life, and when you kind of get that that accolade or that check or that the money or the kind of the kind of like where you were going with that, the film wraps up, the gig racks up, and you're like, well, gosh, I thought it was going to be more than that, but because you're just on the
Right.
journey,
Right.
it's not as exciting as you're like, oh, wait, you got this big check, or you got this big standing ovation, or you wrapped up a film, and everybody's giving their
Right.
hugs. Hey, thanks for giving it. Like we're here to keep on experiencing. It's not like you walk home and then you sit in your room and look at all your trophies. You know,
it's true. There's nobody playing a score and calling you a hero, and it's just this is it. That's it. This moment is it.
Yeah, I know you. Yeah, and you guys, come from that world of the accolades come in through the trophies and the money and the status, and even it's like okay, now what do I do? Like, okay, I want to reinvent myself again. I want to recreate. You're actually none of those things. You're the awareness behind them. You're the observer behind the avatar that's creating. So
we've reached the point where we're going to vouch.
Thank you.
I'm going to go first. Keen, I have an app. It's called Vouch Vault. It's basically kind of the Instagram of recommendations. It's sort of like whatever you love in life, you post there. And so people who follow you go, oh, Keen loves this movie or this photographer or this restaurant. That's sort of how it works. So I'm going to vouch for this book, Brat, written by Andrew McCarthy. It was part of the Brat Pack back in the 80s. I worked with Andrew McCarthy on a show called Royal Pains. Very, inside guy. He's like a very, he doesn't like to speak a lot. He's very just in his own private moment. And he's a good actor, great actor. And he was perfectly friendly, but when you read this book, Brat, you realize he really, really talks about how insecure he was and is, and how that colored everything in his life. And eventually he starts getting cast in these movies and, with Rob Lowe and with Emilio Estevez. And he talks about how just has all this acting process, and you can tell that it kind of gets in the way of his friendships a little bit because like there was a movie that someone wanted to make and it was going to be Emilio Estevez and Andrew McCarthy. But when Emilio Estevez heard Andrew McCarthy was in it, Emilio says, I'm not going to do it. And Andrew McCarthy writes that into the book, and he goes, I mean, and it's just a real like wide open view of a person who you think you would, because you've seen all those movies. I rewatched St. Elmo's Fire recently, and boy, it's really good. And you don't think of these people being as emotionally fragile as Andrew McCarthy is in this book. So I like it. It's good.
Okay, what's
It's
the
called
name?
Brat.
Jotting it down.
An 80s
Brat,
story.
Yeah.
It's funny, like how groups of people create at the same time. Like that group that you just mentioned, how they all like touched a nerve in culture and then kept going. You look at like writers at a certain period or a certain city or painters doing something at the same time. It's always like a group of people that started out, just as friends creating or doing something, and then
Yeah.
it kind of goes from there.
You know what I think that is, Hayes, is there was an acceptance and an openness to that authenticity that was happening. And so, you know, if you're mirrored and you're able to be open and authentic with another, that's when like the real creativity happens. It's kind of done through your own, it's done through your own expression. But then when you can actually, like, you know, even what you guys are doing, when you can kind of ping pong off of each other, you know, it just creates its own like turbulence, its own life. So the 80s, it's funny. My kids are like, what movie should we watch the other day? What movie? And I was like, you guys seen Karate Kid? I was like, no, there's like this new Karate Kid. I was like, no, that's not the character, King Cobra or something or whatever. I was like, no, we're going classic. And so we watched it, and a friend of mine, I went to the Red Sox game last night. He's like, you know what today is, right? And I was like, this was yesterday. I don't know if this is true, but he goes, it's the 40-year anniversary. And I was like, from one of the greatest films. I was like, well, what you know, Karate Kid. It's the 40-year anniversary. He goes, that's how old we are, man.
40 years. Good God.
I would never have guessed that would be the movie.
Yeah,
I'm going to vouch for, actually, when my daughter exited the room, I looked down and saw this book. I'm not going to vouch for it. I think I have already. Jay, you might even turn me on to this. It's Willie Nelson, It's a Long Story, My Life. I haven't. It's awesome and incredible. And when you were talking about driving, how Willie writes his songs sometimes when he's driving, it brings me to what I'm recommending, which is this app called Brainwaves. And you were talking about Willie going and being creative. I think that's like a beta waves when your mind is in that state. But this is an app that you can set the time, and you can set like a background noise, but underneath there's a pulsating to it. And you can select different modes. And I actually use it. I'm trying to get rid of having my phone next to my bed, but I put it on airplane mode, and I can set it, and it guides me.
Does it have a thing called brown noise on there?
And I can.
Do you know about that?
This one these are the sounds on it. So that's the ambient noise, but then underneath, you hear the won't. There's a subliminal noise underneath the white noise. And you could do lucid dreaming, power naps, deep sleep, headache relief, hangover relief. I don't know how well branded they are, but I do know when I select some of them, I can wake up before my alarm clock just in the way these pulses guide me. And if I got to shut it down for like 20 minutes, it's really hard to fall asleep when you have to sleep for 20 minutes if you're going to be doing something for a long time. If I put on power nap, I will go to sleep in 1 minute and then wake up at the end of the cycle.
How is the hangover noise? Does it work?
I haven't tried that one. I usually just pour another cocktail.
Yeah, it just knocks you out.
That's my hangover relief. I don't like having it on when I'm not sleeping. It's intense, but you have to listen to it through your through headphones.
Got it.
Because that's when it gets
brainwaves.
That's when it gets into you. Brainwaves, binaural. That's what it's called. Binaural brainwaves.
What do you got, Keen?
Well, for me, what I've been kind of getting into, so you know, kind of how the last 2 years, like, gosh, I'm like really lost connection with those friends. I haven't really talked to them in a while, and you know, like maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's like, you know, like a new friend, like Hayes, you know. I've become tuned in to this when somebody or something of somebody comes into my stream of awareness. I just send them a text and say, hey, thinking of you, you know, like, and it's very organic. It's very like intuitive. It's available all the time. And, it's something like a deep gratitude of like, hey, you know, for example, I'll say with Hayes right now in this present moment, like when I met him, I felt a deep connection on a soul level that's not really based in type of a knowing on a time, But I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna continue to just be like, hey, thinking of you. I sent a message today with somebody I haven't talked to in maybe over 2 years, and I just like they came in there, and I was like, just thinking of you, and I just want to know that I hope you're well, and I'm sending love your way, and that so for me that's something that's authentic, and I think it has a pretty big ripple too on where it lands. When we have these communication devices, why not use them?
I love that. I love reaching out to someone without an intention, like other than just this, they say what's up or connect or share a joke or something. Not like,
Yeah,
hey, I need this. I
yeah,
need this from you. Can you do
right.
this?
Yeah.
We're here. It's just like it leads to the best connections and conversations. It's like,
And
and
so
they can go
maybe I'll
all out with
start. Yeah. Maybe we've grown a little bit more in our relationship and connection. So the next step of intimacy, a little bit more, is a voicemail. So there's a text, and then if you want to level up, there's the voice, because your voice is a unique expression.
Right.
When you close your eyes, you can hear somebody's voice that maybe you haven't talked to in 10 years. Like, oh, that's Johnny. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
And then the next one is send a little video message. And I started doing this with my kids too, as they're teenagers. I say, hey, I'm going to just do these one-way communications. You don't have to respond, and because I don't want to apply any pressure. So I'm going to do these like little one-way communications, and I want you to receive it, and you don't have to give anything back if you don't want to. If you feel like you want to, then do it. But this isn't a transaction. This is for me to just continue to open up my heart, because we're kind of going back to my work. I'm being inspired to open up my heart into the unknown, and I feel like we're going to move through these turbulent times, not through a headspace, not through the data, not through like trying to figure it out from the old patterns, but through, hey, let's open up our hearts and like move into this unknown together. So maybe I inspire you guys, maybe to throw a message out to anybody who just like, it doesn't take any thought. It's just like, oh, you think of somebody, back to where did that come from? Well, um, you're probably being asked to express something in that way, whether it's a prayer or a text or anything.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Mustache Tales.